Q&A.
Hello, audience, and thank you to DynamicsCon for selecting us for presenting in the DynamicsCon session today. I'm really glad that we are here. I am Lipi Sarkar. I'm helping organizations to drive efficiency. I'm also Digital Transformation Director at CloudSource. I'm researcher and co-author of the book, Building a Digital Future. With me, I have my guest speaker, Eric Mckinney, Director at G&J Pepsi Cola Bottlers.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Lippy. It's a pleasure, and thank you to the Dynamics community as well for voting us in. Appreciate it.
So to start with, we are going to talk about how to start with Power Platform and move to Dynamics 365 CE, field services or services. And this is a subject which is very close to my heart because we will be talking about what we have done in practical, in the customer front, what we have done really. So how are we feeling today? If you can use the chat box and just refer how you are feeling today. Think about the pandemic, think about the COVID-19, that everything has happened. What exactly are your feelings? I give 1-2 seconds and then, so this is a time uncertainty about the future. We know when the COVID-19 started, we could only think of maybe it is a couple of weeks time, maybe it's a month time. We didn't know when it started. We thought that it will be over in a month time. We will be back to business. So let's stay put and we will be there. Then month 1 gone, month 2 gone, month 3 gone, and we started feeling a little bit uncertain about the future. And I'm talking about 2020. Fear of unknown beyond COVID-19, all of those things started, just coming across and feeling what is there in future. At the same time, the customer expectations were rising because a lot of things that we had to do sitting at home, whether you are talking about delivery, whether you are talking about running your own business, and also monitoring the performance, exploding data because data was everywhere. There are lots of apps which has started exploding. So that's quite a difficult period in 2020, and I guess it's for every business really. Then the business challenges to talk about since the data was exploding everywhere, and how the organizations were keeping up to speed in terms of running their businesses, keeping their lights on, understanding the customer behaviors, their pattern, and the perception in terms of how they're going to buy stuff, how they're going to react to different kind of channels. Then also there are some organization who are trying to meet the regulatory, meet the compliance. That was also there. Disruption was happening due to COVID-19. Different kind of apps, different kind of app services were coming up. Customer service with speed and agility everywhere. The customers are expecting the services with speed and to be very agile. With that keeping in mind, I'm a little dragon thinking about what is happening to me in this future. And I don't know if you have ever watched Rising the Dragon, you might find the story relevant because it feels like I don't know what is happening in future. Then I wanted to talk a little about this, starting with our data. In every organization, data is our asset. We know that we are having the data in different formats. There could be bad data, there could be good data. Some data we are using on a regular way to make decisions. And there might be some KPIs. Some organizations might have already developed some kind of KPIs to measure their performance, to measure how the businesses are doing. And they view this dashboard on a regular basis in terms of what the performance indicators and how it is performing. If they're having business in one region compared to other region, they might be looking at their data and making decisions in terms of where they need to focus more or where they need to penetrate a different market. So hence the data was quite important. But using that data and have a view of the customer from various angles and just knowing what the customer's behaviors are, is that something we were doing? Is that something on the organizations are doing, or how does it look like? Then you can also use the data to bring it in Dynamics 365, use that for sales purpose, use that forecast your pipeline, and have a view and an overview of what is the conversion rate of your sales. That is something organizations can do. And then the services that the organization is providing to their customers, how the services are performing, whether the customers can interact with the organization through different channels, whether it's that with speed or interactive, that is something we can look at with Dynamics 365. Every organization need to define their own roadmap. Now, depending on what your target is, whether you want to improve the business efficiency within the organization or optimize your business processes or you improve the customer experience, you know where what is your target. So that is on the, if you look into the right hand side of the roadmap, you know what you want to achieve, but you cannot achieve everything in one day. So maybe you need to target that phase by phase approach. You need to understand what is your key priority, where do you need to focus. So let's take, for example, if you want to improve the customer experience and if you want to counter the disruption and also the impact due to COVID-19, if these are the three key priorities, then you need to think about how you want to execute this key drivers. What are the key factors that you need to implement, whether you need a delivery partner, whether you have got in-house resources, skill sets, whether you want to use your own workforce. So define those guiding principles and then identify who are the makers and shakers within the organization, identify the capabilities and strengths within the organization, and get ready with your continuous improvement, get ready with a phased approach in terms of where you want to go to in your target model. And on the left hand side, I wanted to talk about once you have identified the key cases for change, identify your own business capabilities, assess your solution capabilities internally, and if you want to bring in the external partner, assess those as well. Consider this as a prepare your roadmap, prepare your program, and then embark on the journey. And while you embark on that journey, you can define different kind of matrix so that works for your business, whether it's service quality, real-time analytics, or it's a service dashboard. You need to define those from the business point of view. There is a reference of this in the book, Building a Digital Future, if you want to look further into the details. Now, with that, I hand over to Eric, my guest speaker, who would like to take you with a journey and with a demo of Power Platform to Dynamics 365. Over to you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Lippy. Eric Mckinney, P&J Pepsi Cola Bottlers. I'm the director of IT. I want to thank the Dynamics community once again for voting us in and having this opportunity to share this journey with us. We've told this journey from a number of angles over the past several years. If you pay attention to in the Power Platform community, how we got started. So this has never been told from this angle, though, where we're going as far as moving into dynamics and how Power Platform has played a crucial role in getting us to that, right? So if the community has any questions, I'll absolutely love to take those through the chat. I think it's a great opportunity. So let's, before we get to this slide here, this previous customer engagement process, I want to just talk briefly and catch everybody up about where we've done from a Power Platform standpoint. So in 2016, we built our first application. Most people know it. Like I said, if you follow along, I call it the world famous store audit application. It's been demoed a number of times, I think, by now. It's an application that I'll show later that we have on the Power Platform side. We built our first application. Me and Dan Foster teamed up together. I built the app, and Dan did a lot with the data inside of that. So built our first application, and once the business realized that we could build applications, things really just took off from there. And we've built a number of applications since then. Like I said, that puts us almost at a full 5 years exclusively in the Power Platform, particularly in Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power BI. Part of the problem is, and that'll kind of contribute to this slide here, is we build our applications without having a sales automation platform or a CRM or kind of a central data XRM, if you'll call it, in which we were putting this data into, right? So you have kind of like your Canvas application, you're writing it into, say, an Azure SQL in our case. Many others are writing it into, SharePoint or whatever the case might be. But for us, it was Azure SQL. We weren't writing it into Dataverse or CDS. And we were using really a number of other tools to replace the customer engagement process that we come to know now, the CE process that we come to know now. And I built this slide during our sales process. So, Lippy, you shared that timeline in terms of how we had to go into that. So, if you go back, Lippy, if you don't mind, please. Um, I want to keep it here for a little bit. So during the sales, and I call this the sales, this is our selling process to our organization that said, hey, look, it's time to move away from what we're doing now. In these illustrations that you have right here with OneNote, you'll see Power Apps, Power BI, the Power Platform, text messages, phone calls, Yammer, Teams messages, Kanbans, the customer at the center, being at all of this. And these are all the people that could potentially touch our customer, right? And you look at how we're communicating with each other, you could see that presents challenges, not only for our employees, but more importantly for our customers. And we talk about the customer experience or the customer expectations. I call it the customer experience. If I'm a customer of G&J, I expect you to have my history. I expect you to have my notes. I expect you to have what equipment, what work orders, what promotions, what programs are available to sell to me, when my delivery is coming. Like, I expect you to know all of that. And I expect everyone at G&J Pepsi to have that information, not, the VP of sales or my sales rep, but also the service tech. Most often it's the frontline person or frontline worker that we have, like our sales techs, our service techs, our merchandisers, our geo drivers, or our delivery drivers are the ones that interface with the customer the most, and they're the ones that we want to arm with that information that our customers expect.
So
So
I've got a question here, Eric. I mean, in terms of this, the whole journey, it's awesome. I mean, in terms of, you wanted to give that view to your customers. Was it very complicated because you had different applications running everywhere? Was it very complicated as a journey?
yeah, it's very complex, right? And it's representative. So I felt like this slide represents exactly what's happening or had been happening, and in some ways still continues to happen as we continue on this journey. Um, One of the big challenges we hear from our frontline workers, our merchandisers, is something as simple as, what's called a planogram, right? If you go into a supermarket, right, and on the shelf you have a full shelf of, you know, Pepsi products, right, various Pepsi products that are in various packages and various flavors. What goes where? If I'm a merchandiser, how do I know where to put something or what it should be put at, right? Something as simple as that, communicating that information to the trade, is in a different tool than what you're getting out of the store audit or what you're getting out of your email or, something, in a text message or Teams. It was, and it leads to some confusion. It leads to, lack of opportunities. And we may miss revenue and gross margin opportunities because we're not executing the way we should, right? So during that sales, and I call this the sales process to our organization to say, hey, we've been doing this. We've been doing a CE or a CRM related system by bolting all of these products together. We need to do this in a way that wraps all of this data up, right? That wraps it all into a centralized place and is surfaced back to our employees through the channels that or the modes or the devices that they're accustomed to, right? If it's a frontline employee, it's a Canvas app in their hands. If it's a back office employee, some sort of CE model driven application. But either way, the real power of that is that the data lives inside of one data source, right? Inside of Dataverse, as opposed to being stored in Azure SQL and unstructured in OneNote or SharePoint or whatever the case is. So during the sales process to our organization to say, this is the way we should do it. We should go with, Dynamics 365 for sales and field service. This was used as part of that process, and we spent almost 12 months as part of that journey that you shared, selling this, quote unquote, selling this to our organization, right? And it finally they bought in and said, yeah, we agree with the vision that you want to go and you want to take this, right? So again, we put the customer at the center. So if you can go ahead and change that slide forward if you don't mind. So our end goal, and this is what we're currently working on now, right? You saw all the arrows going everywhere, people communicating across different modes, different channels. You illustrated that as some of your challenges that you have. You have all this data stored in different channels, right? We said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to wrap Dynamics 365, particularly in sales, around the customer, right? And then everybody is going to work around Dynamics 365. And I'll illustrate when we get to the Dynamics portion of the demo. I'm going to illustrate what we mean by that. And we're continuing, keep in mind, we're continuing down this journey where, in an agile process of where we're building out all of these capabilities, and we will be for some time. So some things that I show in the Canvas app are not going to be in Dynamics, but we have plans to, and I'll share our plans to regarding next steps of how we're going to marry two separate platforms or applications into one. So, and remains true as you talk. We look at using Dynamics for a lot of other things, finance, operations, potentially, HR and some other applications. We're going with a similar model of wrapping everything around a customer or a process or an employee or an asset and making it streamlined for everybody that's involved in touching those tangible objects.
So, what was the difficult part of going with the Power Platform and then moving on to Dynamics 365? Do you feel that was a good decision, or if you have to do it again, would you start with Dynamics 365 then move on to Power Platform?
Yeah, that's my favorite question. So it's Lippy, it's great. It's kind of a yes and no answer. I would say hindsight, I would say no. It wasn't necessarily a mistake. Like, you think about probably the traditional way that a lot of people in the community are probably watching this and going, wow, they really did it backwards, right? Like, G&J, like most people start with CRM, dynamic sales, been on it for a long time, and now they're figuring out Power Platform and building Canvas apps and things like that. G&J started, we started with Power Platform and going back because most people have a CRM. It's just standard. But part of me says yes. I wish we had that unified model that, just from a data standpoint, and made it easier for our employees, that we had made that investment. But I don't necessarily look at it as a mistake, because as you'll see when we go through here, we kind of cut our teeth on a lot of the crucial components that make up the Power Platform or that make up Dynamics, right? Power Automate, a lot of Dataverse, a lot of model-driven applications, a lot of Power BI. We figured all of that out early, right? So for us, it was figuring out, model-driven applications and some of the system jobs and the unique things that come with Dynamics 365, right? But we really cut down on our ability to use a partner. Now, we used the partner to help us get off the kind of the ground floor, but we did a lot of our work, and we did it in phases, right? We did a lot of our work on our own. We did it in-house. We had the skills in-house to be able to develop this platform, and still to this day continue and will, for the foreseeable future, to do it ourselves.
I think that's a great example, Eric, and for listener and for our audience, just to call it out, that if you think that moving from Dynamics 365 and then you have to move to a different system, not necessarily, as Eric has just mentioned, you can start with the Power Platform and you can learn about the data. You can own those kind of decisions on the Power Automate or Dataverse, and then you can also move on to Dynamics 365. So it's not a right or wrong question or answer, but it's just a preference of how you want to make your journey, create your own journey, create your own roadmap.
Yeah, hindsight is always kind of 2020, right? And like I said, I land on both sides of the fence that you couldn't have done it wrong. And I, as it stands right now, I don't have any regrets the way we did it. And like I said, I think it's helped us build a better product. And a lot of the automation and the things that we've built into it to marry sales and field service together makes it really powerful. And I'm proud of the team that we have. I get to be the face of this with G&J Pepsi a lot, because a lot of the platforms roll under my jurisdiction in my role. But there's a lot of talented individuals that have built some really great applications at G&J and automation, and they poured a lot of that skill set into what you'll see shortly. We won't see it in its entirety, but you'll see that, and I'm really proud of what we've done as a group and what we've done together.
I think that definitely enhances the motivation, and for any kind of change program, that is really great example because once you own the data, you know what you're working on, and as I said, the team is got really motivational, and they can move on to the next stage, next phase, because they own that kind of skill set.
Yeah, and there's you're starting to see even things that you traditionally wouldn't. So like, and it's great that we're staying right here on this wrapping everything around Dynamics 365 around the customer as an example. Because there's some things that you wouldn't really think about, Lippy, that you would integrate in there. Like take and it's maybe not the highest priority, but I'll give you a really quick example. We have event tickets, right? Pepsi is a big sponsor of a lot of events in our market, right? We have a lot of stadiums that we sell soft drinks to, and as such, we get a lot of tickets to various events and fairs and golf courses and sporting events, Columbus Crew, Blue Jackets, all this stuff, right? And as such, we have kind of a problem tracking those tickets and who gets what. And we give a lot of them to customers, right? And what do you see right here at the center of this PowerPoint presentation is the customer. So when we talk about having, and there's a reason why it's a circle, it's a 360-degree view of the customer that we're trying to provide to our leadership, to our salespeople, so that when they go into Dynamics 365 for sales, they see everything they need to know to support that customer, to have intelligent conversations with that customer about the value that we bring to them, right? So not only is it what programs and what deals can we bring to the table and what products we have and what equipment we have in your store, but also it's something as simple as, how much is the value we've given to you in event tickets, right? And we can have, a conversation with a mom and pop Billy Joe Ribideau restaurant, right? And say, before you move to a competitor, did you realize that we have done X, Y, and Z? You have all of this equipment. We have, from a charitable standpoint, we have donated this much money to your fundraiser that you put on every year for the local fire department, right? Reminding them that not everything is dollars and cents, pure dollars and cents in the products, but the total value of the relationship. And that's what we're working towards. So everything, right, Lippy, like everything from an event ticket bill to a charitable request to a complex marketing deployment.
I'm really happy to see this slide because you have kept customer at the heart of it, and the customer excellence, and then customer service. Whichever way you look at it, it's mainly you have thought about keeping customer at the center of it and giving the services.
Exactly.
I can't wait to see your demo.
Yeah, so we can go on to the next slide here. Yeah, so here we go. Yeah, right at the demo. So let me go ahead and get this brought up here. So I'm going to go into the Power Platform side. First, I'm going to show the latest version of the store audit application. And what you'll see here is we've kind of revamped the interface from a number of different previous demos. And what I'm at is just a basic customer search. I've already synced a lot of the data that's in here. And when you talk about how we started this is all currently, everything you see in here, so there's no smoke and mirrors, is all built off of Azure SQL right now. And then we'll talk about where we're going. But again, as you see, we're able to do a lot of the store audits in here. You can see there's actually a follow-up that's available in here. I can leave comments in here. And what makes this really challenging, at first glance, right, this is really powerful, right? A lot of people from the Canvas standpoint were like, man, this is awesome. This is exactly what we need to deliver to our frontline people, right?
And this is bringing in the data in the right format, and without having Dynamics 365 sales or customer service. This is just building on the data that you had, right?
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
awesome.
Yeah. So this is all pulled in. Like you can see when we talk about planograms, what they look like. So I can see what that view is, or what that shelf should look like. And you can see I'm in a Kroger. I can pull up the store. I can see a lot of details that would normally be surfaced from a CRM, right? But this is actually surfaced from Azure Data Warehouse. And there's nothing, wrong with that. But we can pull in planograms. We can leave driver notes. This was a tool that streamlines the communications from our sales, over to our drivers, right? So if you go back to that arrow, all those arrows pointing all over the place, right? That did help provide some relief. Normally, what you would see from like a driver node standpoint would be, hey, I need you to drop off the Starbucks shipper or the Gatorade shipper. Um, so we built that module in there. We built a retail audit, so we capture the pricing of not only our products but also our competitors' products, right? And again, I
Oh,
could
that's
show.
really powerful. You got all the data, not only your data, but your competitors' data as well. Just using the Power Platform, you have got all those views.
I've got all of the views. And I'm going to talk about like, well, at first glance, you're probably thinking, wow, this is great. You got the data. The problem with it is, which I'll share in a bit, is, if I want to go find this data related to a customer, this is the only interface that I have unless I use something like a Power BI, right? How could I see a history of maybe the driver notes that have been left without going to a separate report? Like driver notes were in a completely separate report for Power BI, right? Retail audit was another report. Planograms are surfaced through another mechanism, right? So even so, right, we talk about the challenges we have. Even though we've built this and it unifies it in this experience, still the underlying data in some ways is either dispersed or you have to access the outputs. Like you're getting nice inputs here, but the outputs are available through different reports or they're available through different channels, right? And if you want to see things like the follow-ups, that's you either have to come in here to the store or you have to view a report, right? In order to do that. And there's a number of, like I said, there's a number of other modules that we've built in here. This cooler repair is basically a work order request that now can be put into field service. This is not directly integrated with field service yet, but our service teams will take the output of this and currently rekey this into Dynamics 365 for field service, right? So there's a number of modules that we have in this application, right? So the challenge, and this is where I'm going to bring in Dynamics 365 for sales. This is our production system. So I'm actually showing the same customer, right? So this is Kroger, I believe 587. Yep, same customer. There's the same account number, so we know this is not some sort of smoke and mirrors demo. This is real time, real data. So this is our Dynamics interface as it currently stands, and we have not made great headway into what we'll call the retail space. This is Kroger's in the retail space. We're going to be focusing on them in the fall. Summer is really a busy time for us in this space. So as it stands right now, they can go out here and they can see a lot of equipment, which is incredibly powerful, right? We've integrated what's into field service onto our sales product. So our sales folks can at least go see what is out there. They can see what work orders are available, and looks like there's some equipment move work orders. So that's actually really nice that this came up. That was unplanned. But if I'm a sales rep of this, I'm able to see that. If there's any files associated with this, I'm able to see that as well. What other details are associated with this, such as associated accounts? There are none in this one because we're at the account level. I can go to things like scheduling, see when their delivery dates are, when their last delivery date is, when their next delivery date is, what are their delivery days, what are their order days. So there's a lot of powerful information that's in here already. We can see some low-level history report, some very basic history report because we've integrated Power BI into this, and I hope this should work. Okay. So live demo always gets you. There's a bit of a problem, but we have integrated sales history into this along with a number of other things. Now remember, the challenge as I kind of bring this down, this data all lives inside of Azure SQL, right? So the intent in our plan as we continue to move through developing this product, particularly for our retail team, Lippy, and you go back, I tell our viewers to go back to that model where the customer is at the center, wrap everything around that customer, right? The intent is that the retail surveys, right, that are put in here, to your driver notes, your planogram, your retail audits, are all surfaced back into Dynamics 365 for sales,
I
right?
see you also have a sales option, so the leads and opportunities, or even the sales related to Kroger, you might be having some information related to that.
Exactly. So the other piece to that, so what you would see, like an example, like a real time example of this would be something up here, like saying, not only can you leave a driver note from the Canvas app, right, but you could also hit an activity and say, okay, I need to leave a driver note, and then that history is left on the timeline of this, right? Or I need to leave a note for the merchandiser to stock the product, right? So you have an interface that's available for the mobile user, but for the back office user, right? Maybe a sales manager, maybe a market director. Heck, it could be the VP of sales comes in here and sees this. Right now, our back office folks have to go into like this Canvas application in order to do it. But we have everybody looking at the same data just in their various modes, and they're able to discern and make decisions based off of what they're seeing. So you're starting to see us now, like the key takeaway from here is ENJ starts out, right, building applications off the tools that they had available, right? Low cost of entry for us to get into Azure SQL, right? Because we have Azure. So easy entry. Let's build our applications off of that. But coming to the realization and the maturity that really we should centralize this data and surface it up. We go through the process of your timeline, right? Selling it into the organization, developing the product, going live. We just went live with this past February, and
And
then
what was the challenge in terms of change? I mean, we touched upon it very earlier. Since you have already started with the Power Platform, people have already got the knowledge internally. But in terms of rolling it out for the different departments of your organization, how was the change, and how long did it take for people to adopt?
the funny thing about that is the change management was actually not that hard. In fact, I know in some places it's probably very difficult, right? But for us, for our group that is using this currently right now, they were hungry for this, right? So we targeted a very um, a specific subsection of our larger, broader sales organization. They were hungry for this. They were hungry for a unified sales platform that they could keep track of their leads, of their opportunities, their tasks, and the various other things that come with this, to be able to manage the quote unquote paperwork that we've eliminated as part of this process, right?
I see
So
what the
they were hungry
strategy
for it.
you have done. I mean, I think you have developed a very good strategy, and maybe you didn't do that on purpose. You wanted to use the Power Platform and then move on to it. But I think as part of the strategy, what you have really done, people got used to the data and they were a little bit, aware of everything what's going on, and they wanted a little bit more. And that's a part of, like any other application like LinkedIn or Facebook. You don't have to train people about those applications. And I think something has happened to your journey in terms of people were really hungry about what's coming next, and it's got very intuitive. Dynamics is very intuitive as a product, and it's kind of self-service in their own way.
Yeah, they've saw what was going on with things like store audit, applications like Store Audit or some merchandiser apps or some of the various other Canvas apps. And they wanted to know when was their time coming, right? Because a lot of what they did in terms of getting going from a lead to an opportunity to closing that deal to getting equipment delivered in your store, right, was a series of info platforms is the way we did it. So like if you go back to that, if our users recall that spaghetti map of everything, there was a little info path icon in there, and they're filling out all this paperwork multiple times. So yeah, Lippy. So this is a great slide that really illustrates some of the advantages that we've done, right? So we used to have all these manual processes that we have using info path, but some of the and this is a big shout out to our business transformation team who did a lot of process mapping. We didn't just throw technology at poor process. We mapped out a lot of the existing processes and went through and built and improved those processes. So some keys. We brought our frontline employees in at the beginning and made them part of building the tool together. which helped with the change management. They felt excited about what they were seeing, even though it wasn't in their hands, because they knew this was going to benefit them in numerous ways from their existing processes, right? And they felt ownership and pride, and they felt like they helped create the tools that you see and will continue to evolve here. So some of the efficiencies that we've gained. Again, I want to say we focused on the process first. We didn't just go and say, let's just build some dynamics and hope for the best, right? Previous EMO or equipment, we call that an email, it's equipment move process was 17 steps. We do about 10,000 equipment moves a day. The new process, we used to do it in InfoPath. It would take days to weeks to get that. But again, going back to the Power Automate and knowing the Power Platform, we've automated that process, and a lot of this stuff gets done in less than a minute, right? In some cases, 30 to 40 seconds. And this directly has improved our ability to generate revenue. I've seen that our market share, I believe our market share, latest market share report shows up, I think, over 3 points this year in this particular segment that we have focused on at G&J. So we're going out, we're beating the competition. We're improving what data is available to make better decisions. And, Dynamics, both sales and field services, allowed us to surface data in a much easier way that helps our employees that we didn't have before. And things were locked in Excel spreadsheets and emails, and notes about the customer were kept in various places like OneNote or SharePoint.
So now you have a central point for everything rather than hunting around for information.
Yeah, and it made it hard to be flexible from a business standpoint by bringing on new sales folks, right, and picking up where the others had left off or changing territories. Now we have a tool and ability to allow us to shift things around, move and kind of put the people in the right place, and they can just pick up right where they left off and serve the customer to the best of our ability, which, as you saw, they're right at the center of all of this.
Great. It's a great story. And you want to talk about the benefits?
Yeah, we kind of touched on this. Yeah, so we already touched on the one central location for all of that. We've added, I guess we forgot we had these statistics in here. So we've added 1,600 leads into the system. We used to have an Excel spreadsheet called Know and Go that we would work off. We just now import that on. As you can see, we gained 3 market share points. We're indexing 450 versus the competition on new and converted versus lost and closed. So that means new restaurants that are starting, or we're taking away from the competition versus what we're losing. Those opportunities created from the leads allow us to follow it all the way through. Ability to track expiration of competitive contracts. So one of the big business problems we have is we'd walk into a restaurant and say, hey, we're with a competitor, but our deal is up 2 years from now. Well, that happens in 2 years, right? Now we can put that lead into the system and then follow up on it, 6 months before that expires. Say, hey, have you given us a shot? Why don't we talk? So not only is this system going to pay dividends now, but it's also going to pay dividends for us in the future. So Lippy, when you think about enterprise architecture and how the system has changed that, like now from a field service standpoint, we used to operate as 4 separate kind of companies. We've centralized that with the help of our business transformation team. And it's impacting not only the technology, but also the people, right, that are a part of that.
What I really also like about is that you are having this work order in a real-time process, and people need to talk about it. So your team at the back end, they know about what is happening to the order when they need to stock up more products.
Yeah, this one is, and this one in particular is more real-time service, right? So for our sales folks, having real-time visibility into what equipment is going into a customer. So field service and sales at G&J Pepsi are tightly integrated because a lot of the sales work we do revolves around putting equipment in customers to sell our products, right? Refrigerators and fountain units, right? And knowing when that's going to be delivered, knowing what is breaking on that equipment so that maybe we need to get them better equipment, and changing that customer, being proactive about it versus reactive, and recognizing that and going to the customer and say, hey, I think it's time we replace this for you, right? So knowing when the service tech is going to be there or what they've done. helps us have a lot more intelligent conversations with the customer as well. So everybody is operating, whether you're on the sales or the service side of our business, to operate on the same plane of communication, and it's dramatically, impacted our organization on a number of levels.
So the product is already live, Eric, and are you working with new innovation or any continuous improvements to the product?
Yeah, we are absolutely. I don't. Boy, I'm under NDA. I don't know how much I can share. We have a really strong relationship with Microsoft. We've developed that through the customer success teams, and I'll tell you that they are bringing a number of innovations to the table that I'm really excited about. That helps drive not only Dynamics adoption, but also bringing other components that can be leveraged in conjunction with a field service like Teams, for example, and there's mixed reality capabilities that could change the way we go to market with sales. AI builder and AI capabilities being introduced into the platform and into the mobile apps, and have already having them available in our own custom Canvas apps as opposed to the first party apps like field service and sales. So um, there are a number of, like I said, I'm being coy, but there are a number of innovations that are available that we're working on our own and in partnership with our good friends at Microsoft for this.
Thank you for sharing your journey, Erica, and wish you great success in terms of building the future innovations. I can't wait to see the future innovation how it's shaping up.
Thank you.
So, to talk about, to wrap up in terms of what are the key takeaways, and audience, if you have any questions, say for Eric in terms of how his journey wrapped up in G&J, or if you want to know more about, the digital transformation, how you should plan and what should be your roadmap, please write to us, ask those questions. The key takeaways, I would say that if you start with a Power Platform, you know the data, and then you can build upon it as Dynamics 365 or moving into sales, moving into field services. And then the next step could be innovation, where you think about, using the data and AI builder, how you can encapsulate and how you can be proactive rather than be reactive, proactive in terms of whether it's in the work order, whether it's in the stock, or whether it's something else you can think about the customer behaviors. So you, as part of like the five key steps, it would be, the process and innovation. You have to streamline your business processes. Technology is an enabler, so use the technology, whether it's a cloud, add the flexibility, scalability, and agile um, frameworks. But keep the customer at the center of your processes when you're streamlining the process. Data and analytics could be your key area where you keep your current data current, and always think about how you want to keep the data current. Execute periodic data cleansing if you need to do, build a matrix and measure the trends and KPIs. Then you also need to think about the business and culture. So build your digital roadmap with the business and prioritize by understanding the desire of the customers and the pain points versus capacity of changes. And also you need to think about the finally how to measure the user adoption across all engagements, how to keep people motivated, how to keep people adopting the technology that you have implemented as part of the digital transformation. So thank you again, and for listening to us. We are really grateful to Dynamics Con communities for giving us the opportunity to talk at this seminar today. And thank you to all listeners and viewers for joining us today. I can't wait to see all your questions popping, and we are here to answer your questions. Thank you again from me and Eric. Eric, any last words?
Just best of luck in your journey, and know that no matter which path you go, you can't go wrong. Just keep working towards it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. While we were at the backstage, I was really impressed to see all the questions coming up. So I'll read out to you, Eric. One of the questions was related to how long did it take to put all on one place, and how did you train your users? Because it has been a massive journey.
Yeah, just to clarify, the overall journey, it's taken 18 months to go what I would say live with sales when you start to include the selling process that we referred to, right, as we went through the change management piece. In terms of training, we use a kind of number of methods in order to do that. Face-to-face training on site with our service techs, with our sales folks. We use built-in tools that exist within Teams, right? Teams and Stream. So we leverage the platforms that we already have through Microsoft and built out channels that they can go and access how-to videos that we made from our development teams, our business transformation teams, wrapped around those processes. And then we're looking at integrating that into the Dynamics product as well. They have that help capability, and we've started to build content into that. We didn't show that in the video, but that native help as well. So we try to meet our users, our employees where they're at, and provide them with that training. So it's just a kind of an omni-channel approach to going through that.
I was going to say, usually what happens in the change management is kind of a tip of the iceberg. What do you see? What you see is like what is above the water, and you don't see a lot of other change issues that are coming through. But in your case, I guess a lot of people were already on that journey. They were aware of what is happening, and they were very hungry about what's coming next. So somebody has made a good observation about love the current state and future state diagrams. And it's quite pertinent if you can show what is happening now and what you're expecting in the future, coming up with the benefits. That's really useful. So all the listeners, I think you will be able to download the pack, the PPT text from the dynamicscon.com. So that should be available from Dynamicscon. The other question, let me go through that. What convinced you to go with, this is from Miha. Sorry, not sure whether I'm reading the name correctly, but Miha is asking, what convinced you to go with Power Platform and Dynamics and not any other competitor?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I could spend hours talking about this. When you look at it, we value, so at G&J Pepsi, part of it's our makeup and our culture. We value integration. So when you look at how we've invested in Office 365, we invested in Azure. So for us to invest in the Power Platform 5 years ago, it was a low cost of entry, right? We already had the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power BI at our disposal. We were already licensed for it. You saw in the video we used Azure SQL for us. So for us to turn these services up, there was no cost of entry. Now that we are investing in Dynamics piece of that and Dataverse, now we're starting to transition all of that data in, surface it inside of sales, and we're really, as a whole, going down the ERP journey using Dynamics 365. So looking at finance, potentially HR, and a number of the Dynamics products as well. But the key takeaway here is the integration within all of the platforms, collaboration, security. When you start to talk about Endpoint Manager and Intune and deploying these applications. So that was the biggest driver.
Perfect. And somebody is already on that journey. So Christina is saying, awesome, what you have done is what we are working towards right now. So yes, great experience. And if you want to have a further chat, look forward to hear. You can connect to Eric as well. So hopefully, Eric, you would be able to share your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody wants to connect, you can find us on me on LinkedIn, Lipi on LinkedIn. She can introduce you as well. Be more than happy to have offline conversations.
And there is another great question coming up from Asif. How do you measure user adoption, and how has it been going? There are two-folded questions. Are user adopting Dynamics well? Well, usually what we have seen, and Eric, you can comment on that. User adoption is something you have to plan for your organization just to see what clicks for your user, what is the culture, and how, what kind of stage they are in, what kind of motivational factor that will help them. And then you have to think about how to bring them in day one, week one, and what will help them to move that in their own journey.